Hello, people. I know it's close to a holiday, and being not a good YouTuber, I did nothing related to the holiday this week. This week, I read Mass Effect Revelation. I absolutely love this. I don't know what you call it. This world. This world. This setup. What do I rate this book? Actually a 3 out of 5. The problem with these books and the problem with this property is it's not loved enough. Not by the fans, but by the creators. They don't pump enough content out. They are focused on their games. It's fine. But you could really make a TV show, you could make movies, and I should have like 20 books by now. You know, sort of like Star Trek. But they don't really pump a lot of that out. And this was, I think, essentially made to get people into wanting to play the game. So, it has that. It doesn't get to control its ending, right? And of course, a book without a good ending is sort of hampered. So know that going in, you won't get the solid end that this thing deserves. I mean, you know, so if you're outside of the realm of the games, you won't get to finish the story. But in or out of the game, I think there's enough enjoyment in the world building. I wouldn't if you're outside of the property already, I wouldn't buy this. I might skip it. If you don't skip it, you'll enjoy your time. If you are already big into it and you enjoy it, you could almost... No. I was going to say you could almost want to buy it. I still don't even want to buy this. Even with how much I like it. So that's that sort of shows you how much of a 3 it is. But it's still worth reading. It's an odd spot to be in. So this is a prequel to the events in the game. The events in the game being you become a Spectre and we just go from there. But stuff happens and is brought up that is of interest that gets sort of washed through this. So this is before the first Contact War. What happens in the story, and it explains this very, very well. Everything in this is explained very well. What happens is we find some ruins on Mars, and that kickstarts about a 10-15 year run that goes from, you know, we're moving in space to the full-on, we're part of the galaxy as a whole. We know there's aliens, etc. And any part of these things could have made this book a lot better, but I don't think the author was given the latitude to go into it, right? So like the part where you're finding these ruins could have been interesting to read through. The parts where religions are struggling with how they function now that they know they're not alone in the universe could have been interesting to read through. But we don't get it. We get moments before we do a mass relay jump. It's their space FTL tech. And we get like, this starts the first Contact War, but we don't actually get the first Contact War. Which again, one more element like this and it might have bumped it up to a you want to buy it. Or at least own it if you're a fan. Right? So we get the moment before it starts, then a time jump after it. First Contact War wasn't too intense. So it only lasted a few months. It's between us and Turians, the most militant of, well, the most militaristic, not the most militant, of the council races. Sort of space races in general. And sort of you see it, like from our perspective, we call it the first Contact Wars. The first contact we have with aliens in it. Ship to ship fighting sort of happens. where it could have gone bigger, right? We'd have sent big ships, they'd have sent their big ships. But the council stepped in and stopped a sort of a bigger war with a new race. But this gets me to the other thing that I like about sort of Mass Effect's world building. Right? In every science fiction, you have sort of the hurdle of how you are with the other alien races. So, if are we more advanced than they? Are they more advanced than us? And if so, how? Right? How did we get ahead of this alien race that can live 1,000 years? Right? Or these races that have been with each other for 2,000-3,000 years? How did we leapfrog them in tech? If that's the setup. This setup has it where everyone's equalized. Where the base we found on Mars was a Prothean base. Again, your long lost ancient race that somehow wiped out. It's fun for the game. But for our perspective in this book, we get tech that's there, and of course we're good at reverse engineering. The other races did the same thing. Right? So everyone's essentially running off of Prothean technology. So in that sense, yes, the Asari or the Turians or the Solarians have been hanging out together longer, but they're not any further past us because we're all basically using this ancient technology anyway. It's the mass relay system. It's how we move around planets, etc., etc. Everything's a derivative of this technology. So we haven't had, even they haven't had any massive breakthroughs beyond that. It's a race that's way ahead of everyone. And so it equalizes everything. So the first contact war, we might have lost as humanity. But it shows like we're not overrun. It's not we're enslaved because they have lasers and we just have pellet guns or whatever. It makes it very even very quickly. And then you don't have that hassle of dealing with how we catch humanity up in an unrealistic way, right? It gets right into the meat. A lot of the story is with, it follows a young Lieutenant Anderson who is older in the game, is a Captain Anderson in the game, I believe. And we heard this in the game where he's the one who was in line to maybe become the first Spectre. Spectres being, and it's cool, it's a cool idea, sort of a Western element to a science fiction story. They're your Lone Ranger. They're your U.S. Marshal, your Texas Ranger, right? The solo justice-dealing officers, but on a galactic scale. So they're picked by the council. They typically sort of lean towards helping their race, whatever that is. But they are supposed to be thinking of the entirety of the galaxy, right? Of all the council races and how things might upset or damage that. And to that end, they have way latitude over regular officers. They can kill you, they could rob you, they could imprison you, torture. It runs the gamut. Now, again, anything too bad and they'll be checked eventually. But that doesn't help your cause in the moment. Now, I mentioned a bunch of races. Species, I should say. This is the other part that I absolutely love about this property. Is, aliens are tricky because there's been so many alien races in science fiction, and they've gone about showing them so many different ways that it's hard to get original. And I feel like these are very original races, technologies, etc. We'll have the weapons, right? Your guns. I think they say you put a big block of aluminum or metal in there, and it pulls with sort of the mass relays type technology, a derivative. It pulls like a grain of sand's worth of metal off and yeets it at like this hyper speed so that it does massive damage. Of course, they have shielding. We have excellent descriptions of the Citadel, of Turians, Asari, Batarian, Salarian. And if you're seeing these pictures, you could see how tricky it might be to describe them. It flat describes them. You see them well in your head, even if you've never played the game. Then it doesn't homogenize their personalities. A lot of sci-fi does this in a rudimentary way. This one's more culture-based, and it feeds into the culture to then explain what you're seeing. But even within that, you know, if you're dealing with this particular Batarian, and that he's a crime lord, it doesn't mean they're all into criminality, right? We also get a good sense of sort of like you're a Asari. Instead of just being seen as, you know, they get a sense that because they're all female. And explain how that obviously affects humans, but then how it's explained, how they perceive it amongst themselves. Where it's not a big issue to them because of how they reproduce, etc., etc., but then they understand their effect on other races, and some will use it accordingly, however they see fit. Our Lieutenant Anderson gets sent to a certain facility, a research facility that's gone quiet. Always a great way to intro a story. He has his crew with him. Here's another aspect of this property particularly that I also like, is we don't pull a lot of punches, right? So a lot of science fiction kind of, let's say, wants to be too PG, right? Too much for what if a kid reads this, versus the reality of the real world would be certain viciousness, right? So, if you're Asari, being all female, that affects humanity or the other species a certain way, would be in, you know, more adult fields, you know, prostitution, this kind of thing. It presents that the way it would be. And so you go from maybe thinking we're dealing with kid issues to more adult issues quickly. It does the same with violence. So if there is, for our Lieutenant Anderson here, there's a military shootout, right, with, what is it, mercenaries. It's vicious. It's brutal. Limbs get blown off. There's gore. Right? So you have to be aware of that going in, that there can be vicious moments in it. But this is what this property does and can carry. When there's politics, it's very political. When it's romance, it can be very romantic. It doesn't get X-rated in that sense, so that's not an issue. But it is sort of heavy on people get bloodied up, beat up, shot. The violence isn't shied away from, which gives it a deeper element to me, but can also be a problem for some people. So know that going in. As opposed to your, you know, mostly sci-fi on TV. Mostly your old retro sci-fi, which, for whatever reasons, I think some of it in your Trek is obviously it's on TV or they don't have the budget for it, but it doesn't lean on those elements to propel itself. It's more intellectual, I would say. Whereas this one can be intellectual, deep, interwoven politics, and then jump right to a full-on shootout and, you know, limbs getting blown off. We cut from Anderson escaping this destruction of this facility to a Lieutenant Kali, who is attractive, young computer systems technician. and she's trying to be a whistleblower for something that's happened at the facility, but then sees on the news that a whole facility got blowed up, and then the rest of the story follows her. She becomes the point of all convergence, so to speak. Half the people think she's involved. The other half want her dad to quiet her up, etc. A lot of fun moments. So our Lieutenant Anderson's trying to find her. He doesn't believe she was involved. There's again, you get a slight romance building with them. We then cut to a Batarian. What's the Batarian's name? I wrote it down somewhere. Edon. Edon is the Batarian. Cut to him. He's hiring a special mercenary to go kill her. The special mercenary being a battle master Krogan. Now, I absolutely love every time there's a Krogan anywhere. Absolutely love them. They're like Klingons. They're like dwarves. They're up there. The rough and tumble, gruff, can fight, love to fight beings in this universe. I love Krogans. His name is Scar, and he comes off like it, right? He fights people. He also has biotic abilities, which is also a cool... It's psychic ability amplified by technology, right? Which is rare in Krogans. And at this point in the story, there are no human ones. But he's just a fun... I kind of hate that he dies by the end, but I also kind of like it, because that's a cool way for Krogans to go down in battle. They do not care. They don't care about long odds. They like to fight. They get in the mix all the time. And like, he could be 200, 300, 400 years old, and you're like, he's not sitting here trying to preserve the knowledge of his people. He's trying to get paid, trying to kill fools. That's what he likes. And you would think it's basic, but they're not basic characters somehow. If he gets into a fight and he's losing, he'll run away. He'll also sometimes, like in the end, he takes too much damage and sort of the battle rage hits him, and he just doesn't. He's just going to be you or me going down. Who knows how many times he's done it and lived, but this time he doesn't. Very fun. We get introduced to Saren. He is a Spectre, Turian Spectre. Again, a complicated character. Makes it fun. You can't be sure for a long time in this book if he's good or bad. He's charged with protecting the galaxy. Whatever that means, he gets to decide. He kills people along the way, just viciously. He's calm, collected. He thinks through, he's planned things out. So in that sense, I'm like, I like a character that's in control of himself. But then on the other sense, you're like, I can't really like a character that's just shooting people he doesn't have to. But he doesn't have people, what is it? He's not tricked, shot in the back because he's too nice. And his problems are large enough that I could see the argument to be made that I can't, which he says a lot. He says, I can't risk this problem killing billions because of one person. And in that sense, he's always willing to sacrifice. But then you're like, does he like it? Because if he liked it, then he's just a psychopath. And you're never really sure. You're never really sure. I know in the game, I think he ends up turning on you. And this sort of tries to explain that. Where the base was working on artificial intelligence, which is illegal because of what happened to... I forget that other race. They made the Geth, and the Geth ran them out of their own planet and have taken over a whole section of space. I have a picture of them. I don't remember their name. Because I'm a goober. In any case, it's legal by council races. They say you can't do it. And this scientist at this base was doing it. But then something went weird. He found... That's what our Cali noticed. That he got off kilter. That he went from nice to just super aggressive about it. And then this builds. This odd behavior builds. So He goes off weird. The Batarian, or Edan, he's a money-grubbing Batarian, but all of a sudden he's acting the way he does it normally because of whatever this thing is. And I think then it affects our Saren. He acts out of kilter. You get the sense that there's some other... You know, what is it like the old gods are whispering in people's ears, kind of, so to speak. And again, that gets resolved in the game. You don't get that resolution in this book, which is why it's a 3 instead of a 4 or a 5. Bit of a downer, but you do notice that this thing is infecting people's mind in a kind of subtle way. Leads us to our politics, our big political moments, our the ambassador. So, alien tech was discovered, and it unified humanity instead of, break us apart. So instead of fighting each other, we've all unified around, again, this is about 10, 15 years ago, unlocking the tech. We've unlocked the tech. Now we're unified around exploration. Of course, some conspiracy theorists said that they had it for years and were setting it up to unify people. And I'm like, I love it. People have conspiracy theories about COVID being, what is it? The Great Reset. I'm like, it just, now this is written before COVID, but when you have good writing that just links up in cool ways to the real world, thinking, I would say, is fun. And she goes to the council races, and they're going to get humanity in trouble for messing with AI, and she pulls some strings. So she's, instead of sitting down, she realizes that the humanity has more pull in this new council space, the new galactic world, than other races. That we've caught up faster. Our numbers, our drive, etc. has got us sort of eye level with these other races in such a way that we don't need to bow down too much to them. We do need to work with them, but it's going to be a conversation, not a parent-to-child punishment. Very fun politics happening here, too. We end with the big heroic explosion. Our Anderson saving the girl. Our Saren has some kind of tech. There's some kind of not Geth AI tech that's worrisome. He has it. But we don't get any of the other resolutions. The big overarching situation we don't have. We have the Krogan out of the way. The traitors out of the way. The minor issues been resolved. It really is just sort of a foothold into this universe. And it's a very fun one. So if you're sort of outside it at all, and what did I get this off of? Audible Plus. If you find it in some way to get it and read it for free or in a subscription, right? If it's part of your subscription of some kind, whichever one exists whenever you're watching this, pick it up and give it a read, and it's fun. It's a great entry into this universe. I wouldn't buy it though. I might skip it. It needed one more large chunklet to make it worth a buy. Okay, now for ads. Since you're not buying that, you buy these books. These books being mine. Are they good? Yes. Will you like them? Probably. I think this one's, I'll put the science fiction one up. This one's my science, not my science fiction, just a science fiction book from me, because I'm probably going to write other ones. All right, it's hot. I know it's a short video, but it's hot. And I'm not going to lie, there are games on right now, the Euros, and I'm highly interested in going and seeing that. So I'll talk to you all next week.